Welcome back. I'm Grindhead Jim, and today we're going to continue talking about that pesky nostalgia tax.
Hey, kid. Yeah, you. Everyone thinks toys are fun, but this is a channel for adults. Yeah, I said it. If you're under the age of 18, go get your parents before you come in here. If you're under the age of 13, scram! Let's get on with the show.
In part one of this series, we talked about the nostalgia tax, trademark Jim Largo, which is essentially a concept of perceived value based upon a memory or a desire for something that's just not absolutely necessary, like collectibles, like toys, like games, like everything else that is possibly collectible in this life. And we took a long time to really analyze the idea of all of the different factors one might encounter when trying to determine whether or not you're willing to pay a specific price for something. But there is something that I want to talk about before we get even more in depth about cost. And that's a simple question. Do you really want this? Now, stay with me here. There's a lot of things out there that perhaps are or are not worth your time or money. I'm not trying to patronize anybody here. I just want to have a discussion about that moment when you go, do I need this? Let's analyze what you're thinking about in that moment. Now, of course, this could be an internal discussion about the monetary cost associated with getting that item into your collection. That's, I think, fairly obvious. And if you've done all the calculations in your head and decided that the price of this item is reasonable, then there's that, well, can I afford that? Well, that's the obvious question, and it's probably the smartest one to start with. Is it something that, versus the value I have in my head, can I afford to spend this money? That's not really what this video is about. What we're talking about has more to do with, is this a valuable addition to a collection or to a start of a collection? Perhaps the idea of limiting one's collection to specific items. That's more or less what we mean here today. I'll give you an example. Recently, I acquired a Superpowers Collection miniature catalog that was put out with the first series of the toys in 1984. It shows all of the figures, all of the vehicles, and the Hall of Justice playset. Now, the listing it was in also came with, and actually was the marquee item, was an insert from a different product altogether. The seller probably didn't realize what they had, bundled them together, and tried to get some money out of something they regarded as trash. That's great. I got a good deal. I was very happy about it. Now, to some people and in some situations, if you get a lot or an additional thing beyond your desired item, sometimes that's going to send you careening in a different direction on collections. So, for example, with this insert, it's just got some pictures of Superman and Wonder Woman on it, and it is basically describing the product, which was this map that you would color in with markers and stuff like that. I have zero interest in that item, and I don't have any interest really in the placard that was contained therein. The fact is, someone might. I have no desire to go off and resell this at this time, but I am hanging on to it, and I'm going to keep it in good condition. So if somebody that I know has a need for that, I've got one in ready supply, ready to go. But here's the thing. That wasn't my first decision. What ended up happening was that as soon as I received it and I got the catalog, everything was great, I started looking at this insert and I said, I wonder if I should just find the original item complete, just so I have that also. Bear in mind, this is not a Superpowers Collection branded item. It's not an item that I have any interest in general. And it's just not something I've ever even heard of. It's a bit of an oddity, which can be desirable. But there was this weird collector bug that had bitten. Well, I can get that too. But I don't need that. It's not part of the collection that I'm after. It didn't inspire me. It just, little fever was like, go get things. And you can't go through a collector's life like that. You're gonna have a bunch of stuff that doesn't relate to each other, and it doesn't display right, and it's a mess. Now, this applies to pretty much everything. We're talking about toys, games, video games, figurines, statues, anything, even Funko Pops. I can't believe I just said that. But this applies. You have to decide where the lanes are on the highway that you're driving through on this collection. Unless you really, really want every single thing with that logo on it, which some people do, if you decide that's not what you want, you have to decide what you do want. And more importantly, what you don't want. Because let's face it, who wants to fill up their space, no matter how limited or vast, with a bunch of things they don't want? And I would like to say that the majority of people that will end up watching this probably have a very good idea of what they are into and what they are not into. So, again, not trying to talk down to anybody here. I'm not judging anyone's collections. I simply want you to go through the thought process every time you think about buying something you haven't bought in the past. For example, do this mental exercise for me. Have you ever been at a convention or in a toy store or on eBay or talking with a friend that has some things for sale? You saw something that you were mildly interested in, but the price was so good you felt like you were obligated to buy it because you felt that it was worthwhile based simply on the cost versus its potential value. It's happened to me a lot of times. And I bet it's happened to you. In that situation, what do you do? Do you walk away? Do you hem haw about buying it? Or do you just grab it because you're afraid of losing out on the deal? That dreaded fear of missing out, aka FOMO. I don't like that acronym, but it's what we've got, so we're just going to deal with it. And I don't claim to know what you're thinking, but I will tell you that in the situations where I didn't walk away, I agonized over the decision a lot more, and typically I regretted the purchase later. If it's not something that I'm actively collecting, nor is it something that I think I'm going to start collecting later, I don't see a point in getting it. For example, if I came across a set of Star Wars at a very, very good price, I would happily snap them up if I could financially afford it, put them off to the side, and then wait until I was going to go after them like hardcore before moving forward with that collection. That, I think, makes sense. But if I saw, I don't know, a freezer bag full of muscle men for $1, that's not something that I need. But I realize that's a really, 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 really good deal that you might make some money back on, or maybe just give out as gifts to friends. Like, that's a little bit different. But strictly from a collecting standpoint, I'm not after muscle men. And no matter how good the deal is, I don't care. They take up space. I don't find any real use for them. Even though I had a bunch as a kid, I didn't have much use for them then. They just kind of stood there. So why, as an adult, a supposedly mature collector, would I waste my time, space, and even a little bit of money on getting them? Just to say I got a good deal. So sometimes we have to admit to ourselves as collectors that sometimes it's not about getting a good deal on what you like. Sometimes we fall into a trap of just getting a good deal. And you're screwing yourself when you do that. I'll give you another example. RoboForce has this great big tank forklift thingamahoozy what's it. Now, I did not have RoboForce as a kid. By the time I was getting into the Ninja Turtles in the late 80s and early 90s, um, I was heavily into those figures, but for whatever reason, the vehicles just weren't coming across my plate. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was me not wanting to spend money on them myself, or my parents not being able to find them, or them not wanting to send them money. I don't know. I suspect it had something to do with the fact that I was getting older. that I could choose to spend my own money on specific things, and they didn't want to spend money on things that they felt were probably going to be in the trash bin in a couple of years anyway. I get that. But I came across at a yard sale a practically brand new RoboForce. Again, I forget the name of this thing, but it's this tank, and I'll show a picture here for you guys so you can have an idea of what you're looking for. Um, but it was in brand new shape. It was in the box. It was perfect. It had never been touched. It had been sitting in someone's attic. They wanted like $5 or $10 for it. So I grabbed it because for the scale, it fit, the Ninja Turtles figures pretty well. It was something a little bit different. Plus, the color scheme kind of mimicked the Technodrome a little bit. It had the white and the gray, and it felt like it could fit in that universe. And it was unique. By that age, I wasn't really playing with anybody. I didn't have people over to play with my toys, but I wanted to have a good time with the toys that I had. And I thought this was great. It was. I'll tell you this. I'm not currently collecting Ninja Turtles in any way, shape, or form. I'm on the lookout for the original four turtles in, just good looking Ninja Turtles. I'll be happy. End of story. I don't have any designs on the rest of the line, even going back and getting stuff that I had. I just don't care. I like the turtles. That's enough. Now, when I had this memory of this, because I was watching someone's video or someone mentioned RoboForce relatively recently. I don't remember who it was. Probably it was Michael, but I don't know for sure. I went and looked up how much that thing costs. Today, it's not horribly expensive, and for a split second, I almost considered buying one, bearing in mind that I have no Ninja Turtles that I would put in it. Even for the limited usage case that I had for it when I originally bought it, which was secondhand to begin with, I was considering buying this thing for no reason, except I had a memory of it that was kind of cool. This wasn't a toy that anyone bought for me. This wasn't a toy that brought me like oodles and scads of joy that I have like heartfelt, tear-jerking memories about. My parents weren't involved with it. My sister wasn't involved with it. My friends weren't involved with it. It was just a cool thing that I happened to have that I thought was neat. And I was going to get it before I got even one Ninja Turtle, the action figures that I had played with it in. I don't know about you. To me, that's a little nuts. Like, what problem would that have solved? I'll tell you, none. The thing is pretty big. It's about this big right here. Where am I going to put it? You guys hear me whine and cry about space all the time. And yes, we have a dedicated storage unit for the growing collection and everything, which is great. But that's exactly where it would go. I would just go, put it in the thing, and up into storage it would go. For no reason, except that for a split second I remembered that I had one and it was kind of cool. Now, if you want to talk about nostalgia tax, that is a seriously bad vibe. Because for a split second of nostalgia, I was prepared to pay 50, 60 bucks or whatever it was. For no good reason. So when I talk about the things that even have a passing interest to you, you need to stop and ask yourself, why do I want this? What place in the collection will it have? What am I going to get out of it? Because for all of the calculations one can make that we'll continue to explore in this series, like, is the shipping cost worth it? Am I getting it complete? Do I have to do this other thing? Is it the same one that I had? Do I want to read it? All of these questions go flying out the door if the answer to the questions, do I want or need it in the collection, are no. Sometimes the prospect of just being in the moment of seeing something that's kind of cool, that is at a decent price, it takes us out of our logical mindset. And we just want to latch onto it because there's a thrill associated with the acquisition of things. Ask anybody, myself included. There are times where I'm just like, ooh, click the button or pick it up off the shelf, put it in the cart, even if I don't really need it or want it. It happens all the time. So, this video is a pledge to myself and to you. I am not going to be in a habit of doing that without stopping myself to ask the question first. Because I don't need stuff that I don't particularly want. You don't really want me talking about things I don't particularly need or want. And I sure as heck want to make sure you guys are preserving your space, your sanity, and your money going after things you really, really like. So you need to put the brakes on when something is just at a good price if it isn't something that you're going to be into. And I realize all of this seems like really obvious, common sense stuff. But any of you who collect anything know darn well at some point you've bought something you didn't really have an affinity for because you couldn't pass on the price. Frankly, another example is that portable Monopoly board game from Japan that I got for the price of nothing at Retropalooza. It's taking up space in my drawer. I have no designs on playing that game. I got it because I thought it was neat, it didn't cost me anything, and as a conversation piece. Now, those are reasons to have it in the collection, and I do like the game Monopoly, and I do like Japanese stuff. But is it essential? No. If I saw it at someone's booth for $1, $5, $10, I'd have picked it up, flipped through it, been like, that's really cool, and put it back down. But because someone that I trust and respect said, you can have this, combined with the minor interest that I had, I took it. Now, do I regret that? No, I've got a good memory attached to it. So that becomes its value in the collection. It's a reminder of something good that happened. But that even then, free stuff doesn't always come to you in that way. So even when it costs nothing, you have to ask yourself those questions. Do I want it? Do I need it? You have to ask it every single time, every single item, no matter what. Or else next thing you know, you're going to be drowning in plastic and cardboard that is just useless to you. Now, I don't want to be some sort of Debbie Downer here. I want to be very clear. When you find something that you're even on the fence about because you do have interest in it and it's a good deal, grab it when in doubt. But you have to have that interest in it. Unless, the only other situation I can think of, if it's something you have no interest in for your collection, but you know someone else that does want it or need it, and you recognize it as being a really good deal, and it's within your means, then it's probably a good idea to get it and broker a deal with that friend or acquaintance that needs that item. That's different. So bear in mind, I'm not trying to tell you how to do things. I'm not telling you how to collect. I'm not telling you how to buy. I'm simply imploring you to think things through in the moment when that hunt bug bites. That's a cat. For the record, I want and need that cat. So again, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I would ask that you at least go through the exercise at least a few times so you can kind of get what I'm talking about here. In my opinion, we have to learn to separate the desire for a good deal from the desire for things, because a lot of times they don't match up. So at the risk of talking in circles any further, I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I hope that you got something out of this video. I want to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Let me know if it's happened to you. Is this an exercise that you actually go through every single time? And if you don't, is this something you're going to try and get better at? I want to know. If this is your first time here, consider sticking around. We have a lot to talk about, and there's tons of stuff to catch up on. We're only going to expand from here. In the meantime, may all of your grinds be merry, may your card backs be straight, and may you be able to find anything that you're actually looking for at any given time at a price you feel is reasonable. Take care, guys. Cheers.